Welcome back to the LCS for another day of postseason play. Today we've got Immortals looking to turn to the next page of their Cinderella story, while TSM aim to continue their comeback heading towards Worlds. But perhaps more importantly than any of that, ladies and gentlemen, I am happy to be joined once again by none other than Joshua Jazz.
Surprise!
Surprise! Yeah, damn right. Not a single one of us made mention of this publicly to any of you.
We're so bad at that.
Bet you didn't expect
actually.
this.
No, we're keeping it a
This
secret.
is very intentional.
All
okay.
planned. All planned. All right, well, I do want to do something right off the bat here, Jad. I want to pull up the bracket, but I want to turn to you and get your take on the way that the LCS playoffs have broken down so far. To expectation?
Surprisingly, yeah, mostly. I think if it was the same type of bracket as we had in 2020, where the #1 seed was able to pick their opponent, it would be a little bit different because I don't think TSM would have chosen to play Team Liquid.
Gotcha.
But like, even if you look at last year, this IMT TSM match is equivalent to the TSM Golden Guardians reverse sweep, where TSM was able to take it and go all the way to finals. So there's still a lot of league to be played before we know who's going to Worlds.
Yeah, by all accounts, that Team Liquid squad came into playoffs just on another level as compared to the regular season. But I think as well, a bit of a surprise for many that yesterday's series was a 3-0 scoreline. Coming right back to you again, Jad, on this. I know, I got to get my fill of Jad if I only got it for one day. But I know actually off air earlier, you had made the comment that you felt yesterday's series was perhaps a little closer in play than the 3-0 scoreline represented.
Yeah, I think so. I think in games 2 and 3, EG held some pretty sizable gold leads, and I think if they would have played a little bit cleaner, they would have been able to close it out. But I also want to say that playoff league is so much different than regular season league in the amount of time a team can prep specifically for an opponent in practice. They can pick the exact same bands the entire week before they want to go for it. So I think that actually weakened EG a little bit because I think they had relatively shallow champion pools during the regular split. And I do think they got a little bit punished by C9's prep.
Now, that said, now Cloud9 awaits the winner of this matchup here today on Sunday with, of course, the other upper bracket matchup playing tomorrow. So I want to get straight into predictions as we wait for champions like to hop up onto our screen. So hi, I turn to you. We've got Immortals, we got TSM. First versus 7th seed. Where are you throwing your weight?
Well, I can only go 3-0 in TSM. I don't think it's a big surprise to anyone.
You could try it 4-0. I just don't think it's going to work.
If they could do 4-0, that I would give them. Like, if we're doing a best of 7, they would 4-0. Okay, I don't. Yeah, that would
be a best of 7.
For all intents and purposes, TSM should win, whether it's a 3-0 or a 3-1. I think they should win. Why? I think they have better players in all 5 roles. Does that mean IMT can't win? No. But does that mean all 5 players need to step up? Yes. Is that going to happen? Unlikely. So my book, TSM should win 3-0 in most universes.
What do you think? A 3-0, 4-0, 5-0?
I actually have it as 3-2.
Oh.
I wasn't bold enough to say that Immortals will win, but I'm definitely not completely confident that TSM will win, which is why I have like the kind of spicy 3-2 prediction. I think anytime a team loses a best of 5 the way the TSM did, it's a shock to the system. Right? Like they played Ziggs in game 1 and then they dropped it for the rest of the series, right? They played Azir multiple games. Like they need to pivot in some way. And if they pivot wrong, the season's over. And I think Immortals is actually a respectable team. So if they're playing well and they're playing in meta, I think we could see an upset. But as I said, like it's 1 seed versus 7 seed. So I have to go with TSM. I just think it could be really close.
Emily, your thoughts?
So I am going to split the difference and go 3-1.
Straight down the middle. I like it.
The reason is because I think they kind of both touched upon, Immortals having to go up against TSM, who I think is a better team. I'm actually not even looking necessarily at the individuals, but the way that they play their mid game, I think is a lot better than Immortals. And if it goes to this kind of like slow style that you've seen Immortals kind of fall into towards the end of the split, I do think that TSM will be able to just punish mistakes better because they're a lot more experienced in macro play. I do think, however, that with good prep, Immortals can definitely, like, if they bring what we've been hearing about in scrims to stage and prepare really well for TSM, I think they will definitely be able to take at least a game.
Well, let's talk prep then, Hi, because prep shows itself right off the bat in Champions Select, right? But Immortals has been one of those teams that we have lauded for their creativity in draft throughout the split at times, whereas TSM, as Jat mentioned, did feel like they came into the postseason with a different approach and read on the meta than most, with those multiple games of Azir, for example, in the mid lane.
All right, so hear me out. I got some great, deep insider information, okay? So I'm sitting in the parking lot this morning eating my lunch, right?
Yeah.
TSM rolls up, Huni rolls up with his red Range Rover, super nice, clean.
Yep.
Pops out 2 TSM other members because they're Sword Arts there. I say, hey, what's up? I'm like, hey, guys, you're going to 3-0 them today, right? They're like, yes, we got to go home early. So 2 things is going to happen. TSM is going to 3-0 them, super short day, or they're going to get 0-3. I told them has to be one or the other. Either
Hold up.
3-0 or 0-3.
Hold up. I'm reading into that story a little differently. You told me that only Spica and Sword Art got out of his car?
Yep.
That tells me there's an internal rift in the team.
Really?
Why didn't he drive the whole squad to the arena?
Because when you're rolling deep, you can't just come out like 7 people from one car. It looks like a clown car.
Oh,
right?
yeah, okay.
Like you're riding in style with your red Range Rover, 2021 Red Range Rover. You only have a couple of people in there. No, you're not coming out with 7 people.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. Looking forward to the first game. Do we know side selection? Did TSM pick blue or red?
I will wait until that gets relayed to me, but we do know it.
Yeah, exactly. So
I bet blue.
it's interesting because
But, yeah.
Immortals played twice as many red side games as they did blue side
There you
games
go,
this
TSM
season.
blue.
So yeah, TSM picked blue because you get more control going into a series like this. But Immortals, I think, is more comfortable on red because they played 20 red side, 10 blue side so far in the season. And pay close attention to TSM's bans in this first game because in the Team Liquid series, their first 3 bans only were for 4 total champions in the entire series.
Wow.
So I think they do a lot of practicing against this set the whole week, and then they don't want to pivot that far. So the Thresh one was going to be a question mark for me. They didn't have that in game 1 against Teal. They've added it because I don't think it's a Sword Art pick right now, and it is a Destiny pick. And I think Lucian means that they're trying to weaken Immortals' play of Ziggs because Immortals will need an 80 champion with the Ziggs. And that's my spiel for now.
I mean, also just I don't think PoE's Lucian's that great. Like he isn't mechanically bad on Lucian. I watch his lane phase on it. He lands his Q through the creeps. He does good trading. He gets good CS. But the way they play around Lucian when it comes to mid and late game, it's just not very good. So 1, it's a good ban against Insanity because it's one of his favorite champions. And 2, also prevents TSM from picking it in the case they're like, this is a good spot for Lucian. Don't pick it though, you know? Genius ban by Bjergsen.
There's no Xin ban. So in the regular split, Spica was 10-1 on Xin and Diana, and 9-9 on other picks that were denied from him. His first Xin loss was last week against Team Liquid, but they just go with Lee Sin. So this is technically a flex pick. I'm actually very surprised to see that as the first pick instead of Xin Zhao.
Myself as
Same,
well.
Actually, yeah.
I mean, primarily based on the stats that you just threw up there. I mean, there's a reason why Spica has been so celebrated for TSM. Just as an individual, he's been such a big piece, a big component of their victories and their success. And as they don't pick up the Xin, Immortals is not going to waste any time grabbing a couple power picks of their own in Rise and Xin Zhao.
There's no way that's a flex Rise, is it? Because early picking a mid laner this fast usually is either A, you want to take it away from them, or B, you're keeping it as a flex. And Revenge does like playing like Camille and things that can like 1v1 top. And if that's Lee Sin top, he does not have a good time versus Rise top.
So
It could be a flex.
if any team would do it, it was Immortals.
Right,
but
that's what I'm saying.
I don't think they're going
I don't
to.
think they would either, but I think that would be good, honestly. Like, I don't want to play Lee Sin versus Rise in the case that's Lee Sin top, which it could be.
They could always just swap. Like, they could always just lane swap for better matchups, which I also wouldn't put past IMT.
But then you got to send your top laner mid, and they don't know
Yeah.
how to play mid, let's be honest. There's no bushes there.
So usually the argument is the opposite. The mid laner doesn't know how to play the long lane.
I feel like mid laners are a lot more flexible when they have to go to different
all right.
lanes.
Hi. Let me stop you.
Okay.
Let me stop you there.
No
Hi.
bias.
Do you think mid laners can play any lane, or do you think you can play any lane?
Okay, you have seen plenty of mid laners roll swap. We have Perks literally roll swap the bot lane. You have a lot of who he swapped to support.
I just
a lot of
wanted
mid
to-
laners to swap off a mid lane, not the other way around. I haven't seen many roll swap from whatever to mid.
I wouldn't be doing my job if I wasn't checking the ego every once.
Oh, I'm just saying.
That's all it
I've
is.
done it as well, but it's not about me. It's about mid lane. We're talented people.
Bringing it back to the draft real quick, Hi. Since we did see the Orianna locked in, and while yes, technically that Rise could still be flexed to the top lane, if this were to be our mid lane matchup, how do we expect that one to play out?
My bet would be if it is Rise mid, Rise Xin Zhao is a lot stronger than Orianna Lee Sin. Orianna has no actual thing to make Lee Sin hit his Q. Like the 2v2 at level 6, it still goes in the favor of IMT because if you send all of your damage onto Rise, that Xin Zhao will kill you. And you can't focus Xin Zhao because of his ultimate. So Rise and Xin Zhao is one of the strongest 2v2 mids with the current bans that they have. So they should just keep it, honestly. I wouldn't send Rise top, assuming this is Lee Sin jungle. But who he does like is Lee Sin.
I agree. Like they're going to hold that flex as long as they can, but I don't think Immortals is going to make them show here. So I think Immortals is going to take their 80 carry pick here on 4. And I really like the Ziggs ban here by TSM because I think that is one thing where you can just isolate the Ziggs versus the Varus and then have your support leave the whole time, which I think would favor Sword Art. So I want to see if Immortals can pick something that keeps Sword Art in lane. It's just going to be really hard against Varus. Like what is the pick even against Varus when you need to
Draven, something with some range.
Ashe could be good actually.
Yeah, I actually think Ashe is stronger than people give her credit for. We were talking about that off camera before.
Yeah,
this
about
series
Ashe
started.
being a little strong in this
I
meta.
really love the Trundle ban coming through too, because that again is kind of forcing the Lee Sin into the jungle position, whereas they could have picked Trundle to counter the Xin
Are you
Zhao.
really going to do TK like that?
He's blinding, bro.
Blind
Yeah.
Did you
TK?
see his
Hey.
team Tom Kent's last time, though? That guy was nuts, man.
He's a giant ball stats, right?
Yeah.
He is.
And, you know, when
And
worse
then-
comes
and
to
then
worse,
some.
just pick the giant ball stats and add some stats to it. And send it down a
I
lane.
feel like that's such a weird pick, though. Why wouldn't you pick your AD carry there, right? Like, one, I don't think they should pick Ashe.
Yeah.
I think that's too much CC. They build QSS.
Maybe they are sending the Rise bot.
They're just saying that I just think they're saying TK's a power pick. Like, so one other thing about TSM that I don't think that many people realize is TSM plays through top. Right?
Right.
More
Yeah.
so than
Oh, yeah.
any other lane. So if you put a brick up there, it makes it very difficult for them to execute that game plan. That's the only thing I can think of.
I don't think you play through a Tom Kench top, though. Like, if you're to do Tom Kench top, like, say, like,
You-
TSM plays through top, right? And they pick Tom Kench. I don't care if they play through Tom Kench.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
Yeah.
you do you.
Well,
And I
it's
think
not-
the Gnar is super favorable for TSM here. Huni's
Yeah.
really good and comfortable on Gnar.
I was gonna say for the Tom Kench pick, I also think it's probably just that even if you're not playing around the Kench, he can kind of hold his own.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
he just sits
Just a
there.
brick.
Like, oh, do you want to really dive a Tom Kench? Like, no.
No, the answer is no to that. But yeah, I guess I look at these 4-5 picks and I do ask, like, why couldn't Immortals picks have been inverted? Why couldn't the Ezreal have come in? Was there really anything that was going to change whether or not you stick with the Ezreal? And then, hey, leave yourself open to maybe some wild counter pick in the top lane. But by the same token, if we do view TSM as a team that plays entirely through top and we don't see ourselves really contesting that, you just put your top laner on the least diveable, tankiest champion and say, survive, survive, survive.
The big thing here for me is that I don't feel like we forced TSM. Like, TSM got
A lot.
comfort across the
Yeah.
board, right? So, like, when I'm looking at IMT strategy going into this, I want them to set TSM off kilter. This is a draft that TSM is completely comfortable across the board playing.
Right, and particularly that bot side too, because I think that would be the weakness if I were
Yeah.
Immortals that I'd want to attack, and I feel like Lost ended up on comfort with the Varus.
I definitely think it's a mistake not to pick AD carry fourth there, unless you're keeping the Rise as a flex for bot.
Yeah, I think overall, I'm with Emily. The TSM got a lot of comfort, which is what you want in the game one in a series where you're favored.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Game one, champion select, locked in. Immortals versus TSM, 1 versus 7. Let's head out there.
Welcome to the LCS Championship. TSM and Immortals are facing elimination. This best of 5 will determine who fights Cloud9 to stay alive in the bracket and claim the last spot at the World Championship. TSM are 5-0 against Immortals on the year. Hoping to make that 8-0 after today.
We'll have to see, because there was a lot of talk in between the week about scrims and all these different results, and there's a lot of chatter that Immortals is actually looking really good, and I think that has swayed a lot of public opinion. No one is quite brave enough to predict against TSM,
Yeah.
but there's still a lot of talk that, hey, this is not going to be like slaughter you might think it is.
Exactly. It's a lot of, hey, but I wouldn't be surprised if they upset them. But that's the key word. It would be an upset. And as far as the seeds go, this would be a massive upset. It is number 1 versus number 7 coming in here.
Well, some people do have belief in Immortals. We've got Latigra standing by with their head coach, Kyoto.
I should take the mask, that's true.
Good. Thank you so much. I am here with Gilhoto ahead of this matchup. You properly identified the threat that Dignitas had last time around. What do you think is the threat that TSM poses today?
I think that TSM is one of the teams that plays the best around top. So obviously we are looking at Huni and also Spica. When it comes to early game, later on we believe that Power of Evil is a really big threat when it comes to team fights, especially on his mages. But there are so many that obviously we can't really avoid him playing mages, right?
And a different level of team when you compare Dignitas to TSM today. What were you saying to your players to get them ready for this matchup?
I think the main thing for our players this series is just enjoy the experience. We always were honest that our goal this year is to build kind of a core. And enjoying this best of 5s, the fact that we are lucky enough to have a second best of 5 to gain that experience is very important for our long-term project. So the main thing for us, winning or losing, is that we'll feel comfortable with the performance that we put in, and if we do that, then we'll be happy no matter the result.
Well, it's always an enjoyable experience getting to hear from you. Back to the casters.
Thank you.
I'm going to be really interested to see how heavily TSM does actually focus on topside. You know, that was one of the big questions coming away from their series against TL. How heavily would they pivot from that red side strategy? Of course, they picked blue here today. And how heavily will they pivot from how often they were up there? You know, is their read that this strat doesn't work? Or is their read that this strategy does not work against Alphari or does not work against Team Liquid?
Yeah, and I think they indexed a little less heavily into it this time around, like you said already, just going blue side. They also saw the counter pick, but it was just the Gnar. It wasn't anything too aggressive, like potentially Jace or something. And so a little bit safer, but I still want to see especially how the supports interact with it, because you talk about playing around topside right now. It's a lot about roaming supports. In the regular season, the duo proximity for supports was between like 42 and 50% generally. Right now, Swordart was at 20% in the series against Team Liquid. Destiny was at 37. Everyone is below the regular season, and that's why you can see that there's going to be so much focus probably around that top lane.
And even in the regular season, the LCS had the lowest duo procs of any region in the world. And then on this patch, on Playoffs patch, it's massively lower. You know, people are just already ramping up so heavily into this roam style.
And we're going to see if, you know, Ezreal is like the famed 1v2 champion. Obviously, Sordo's going to be out of lane a fair bit. But yeah, Raze is you know, probably going to be left alone a fair bit with Destiny running around. Did want to make a point about Guilhoto as he was talking. The Portuguese coach told me on Twitter at the beginning of the split, he has made finals in his first year on every team he's ever been on. So we're going to see if he can keep that one up with Immortals here. He's got a couple matches to win to make that one go through, but be excited if he could do it.
I mean, it's a tall task, given, you know, it feels like compared to a lot of the other top teams in North America, they balled out on their budgets and who they were signing. This would be an incredible story if he was able to pull it off, especially with what resources they were given.
And to make it to finals, you have to win 3 best-of-5s from here, right? You know, there's still, you'd have to win this, you'd have to beat C9, then you'd have to beat, you know, potentially the loser of TL 100. So, you know, either of these teams, long road to go to try to make it to finals. But of course, the focus here is on this series today, on trying to go one step at a time. This is, you know, do or die for these teams trying to make it towards Worlds. We already know that Cloud9 won, that they're going to be waiting for you in that next round, and we'll see who's going to get the advantage here in game number 1.
Now, TSM making the lower bracket run that they had just a year ago around this time. See if they can make that one happen yet again, as we've got a pretty tight game right now. You saw TSM playing bot lane pretty slowly. You can see Swordart lasting the cannon as late as possible, despite the stack working at half health. Did not want to be under the opposing turret right away. We do have the first dragon of the game spawning. Good. Okay. Proper support bot lane play. Share the CS on award. The sweeper always gets full gold. Donate the extra 10 gold over, and you're going to be fine. But now, here is Destiny and Xerxes duoing up, looking to control this one. Aggressive control ward means Spica now loses all of this vision. His ward is gone. His Raptors are gone. Sonic Wave's not going to land, and Xerxes gets to take about 75 gold away.
Already, the roaming is beginning. You see Destiny fresh off that recall, going in there, trying to get some wards down, help his team out. And a lot of this also seems to be coming from mid lane. Both junglers in their initial clears kind of ended up mid lane, helping fix the waves after both mid laners spent all their mana to get good recalls off. And I feel like that will be an important part, especially with Ryze, is unlocking mid lane to then go top and punish this extended Gnar who's going to be pushed up most of the laning phase.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all connected, right? You know, the initial ward on the Raptors was actually from Insanity. That gives them vision that Spica is starting up the Raptors. They can move in on the invade. You know, they can try to have that sort of a play come through. So it will be interesting to see where the focus is going to be. It's a pretty slow first 6 minutes. No one really going for any sort of a move just yet. But both teams actually have quite a lot of scaling, so there's not really that much pressure on either side to make early moves.
It is actually really interesting to talk about in that way, because there's pretty similar comps too. There's a lot of frontline potential, engaged, front-to-back team fighting. I think the only wrinkle that one of these teams has is probably the Ryze as a bigger late-game side lane threat than a Gnar does become, who, you know, is always a bit of a threat in the side lane, but, you know, late game, if everyone's hitting their items, I'm a little bit more worried about the Ryze.
Of course, you know, I think Ryze in the side lane is a concern, but on the other side, you have Orianna plus Rel, which is so nasty in team fights, right?
Tough
so
engage.
Exactly. It's kind of the trade-off there. It does have a little bit of a scuffle here around this Scuttle. Will be interesting to see if either team wants to start up the Dragon, but don't think it's going to happen.
That's going to be pretty much impossible. In front of Scuttle, there's no realistic way TSM can make it happen. There's always a chance for the Immortal sneak. Xin Zhao's not the fastest clearer, and no Iron Spike Whip, just the pickaxe. It's going to have okay clear speed, but yeah, even with the vision, That's not going to go down just now. He's got camps to clear. You know, if you get spotted, you just lose your top jungle as soon as Spica pivots that side. So chilling for now. Level 5 for the junglers. Level 6, though, already on the Xin Zhao. Might mean a little something. Finally has Iron Spike Whip. That just helps so much with a champ like him to actually clear out things like Raptors and small Krugs. It saves you like 4 to 5 seconds per camp sometimes. That's a really, really big deal. So we can keep up pace. Spica, there we go. Finally pulls up the Gromp and is going through his jungle.
Yeah, and interesting to know that Power of Evil actually moved over towards the blue, and Spica is the one who ended up taking it. PoE just takes a base, maybe making the decision that he doesn't actually need the extra mana early, so trying to get Spica to level 6, and he does get it off of the Gromp. So I think they were really just pushing for that spike, for that ability to hit 6 early, to be looking for a potential play here.
I think it's going to be interesting to see where they try and focus down first, because it is such a slow game right now. You want that Lee Sin to get the level 6, get your ult off somewhere, and try and get an objective off of it. You see some pings going down from Immortals onto the Rift Herald. We'll see if they try and make an early roam up there. I think the decision to go Leona and Ezreal combined is obviously trying to unlock the Leona to find these scraps and these roam opportunities. It's just been a relatively quiet game compared to what we had seen so far in playoffs, where people are just super aggressive.
And a lot of it is just about the vision, right? Being able to track these moves from both sides. You know, you have multiple pink wards here in this area from TSM, trying to cover any potential roam up from the Leona. Of course, there was scuttle control. There's a ward in the pit as well from Immortals, trying to cover their own.
Yeah, wards on top side as well. I mean, protecting PoE is a pretty huge part of their game plan, or at least it was more during the regular season. When they went that top side focused in the first series against CL, it was a bit of a surprise, because generally it's a lot about neutralizing opponents and getting into the mid to late game for TSM that I saw during the regular season, and Huni being the pressure point, but they would also make sure that PoE wasn't falling behind, and this is a little bit more towards what we saw during that portion of the season.
And I think it talks about what Giolotto was talking about. You know, the ability of Power of Evil to really carry in the later stages, that he is that threat. TSM is trying to play towards that. And, you know, my read on their strategy coming into this game, number one, is they may just think that they're going to out-team fight Immortals later on.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you think that you are the better 5v5, the superior team fighting team, well, there's no need to make any moves. You hunker down, you get your mid laner farm, you set up with this hard engage combo that you have, Lee Sin, Gnar, Rel, plus Orianna, and then the follow-up there from Varus. Like, that is a tremendous amount of engage, a tremendous amount of burst. And if you think you can execute on that, no need to rush.
And what's fun is, you know, it's one of the great things about having a sport that you play a lot of games of the season. You can do a lot of physical analysis. So shout out Tim from Oracle's Elixir. He has a stat for mid-late game rating, which is we take your gold lead and your dragon lead at 15 minutes, and then compare that to your actual win rate. TSM, and you know, if you win a lot more than your early game suggests, you have a mid-late rating. This is now the point I'm going to make. TSM have the best mid-late rating in the LCS by like triple. Like, they win 16% more games than their gold leads suggest at 5 minutes from now. Like, they're really good at that. Now, that said, the 4th place team in that stat is Immortals. They actually both do pretty well later on compared to what their early game leads suggest.
And I think that's why the TL series was such a surprise for a lot of fans, because there were games that were pretty even heading into the mid to late game. They would have Azir in some of these games, and then they would make mistakes around objective setups or lane assignments that would hurt them, but they're looking much cleaner today.
And I think part of that was just how well TL was responding to everything. You know, TL was playing an incredible game. I think, yes, TSM made mistakes, but to me, that series was more about how well TL played and less TSM really playing poorly. You know, Santorin was everywhere when they did try to look for plays. And, you know, in this series so far, they're up nearly 1,000 FTX gold. They got the early dragon. Their laning has just been superior.
And I think they've done a good job of doing what we talked about, neutralizing some of what Immortals is going to go for. Yeah, you guys get the Rift Herald. We're going to go bot lane. We're going to grab the dragon. We're going to pressure you off and grab a bunch of plates that the Rift Herald would get you anyways. And so they were able to kind of trade that play that Xerxes was making into their own advantage.
Now, top laners farming back and forth. Revenge going for the rare choice of Fleet Footwork. Since you are in a ranged matchup, you really can't ever use Grasp, so still finds a sustained rune to use to keep up, but is, you know, slowly losing in farm. Huni, of course, a very lane-dominant player, and yeah, is, I would say, probably about half the gold right now is just in top lane CS.
Yep, top lane CS. He also got a plate, you know, from his early push. Obviously, they have the 3 plates on bot side, so that's a lot of their advantage.
The lead.
But you know, it's tough. If you get constantly shoved under the tower as Tahm Kench, you know, honestly, the limiting factor is more your mana pool oftentimes, because when there are awkward HP numbers on these minions, you've got to use your Q, you've got to use that spell to try to last hit, and it can get costly. It can kind of be taxing. This Gnar is just resourceless and constantly shoving.
And one thing I've seen from watching, Martley Hilo, Tom Kench, and solo queue and whatnot, he's more of an early game champion. Like, his strengths are actually in having a very good laning phase and beating, the Maokais and Dariuses and whatever in his lanes, because he's got really good early game damage, and you can't push him out of lane. He then falls off because he's not the same kind of a tank as any other tank, or as threatening as any other fighter. And so if you've kept him in lane and he's down CS, you've just, kind of gotten rid of all the Tahm Kench advantages, and he's comparatively weaker to other picks.
I mean, they blinded him, so they kind of knew that they're opting into probably going to be a difficult matchup, and I think they did that for their bot lane, which was a little surprising. I think you even heard the analyst desk calling that out, and they haven't seen anything for it, because you were supposed to unlock the Rise to help him out. I mean, Tahm Kench does have good gank set up with both his W and R now, and they just couldn't do anything yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fairly binary champion, right? It is a champion that you want to play with elite, because generally you just have to outstat your opponents.
You run at them. Here we go.
There's not a lot of tricky plays you can look for here. Destiny could be in some trouble. Oh, nice kick.
Hop kick's going to land. Xerxes going to try to get away. Has the ulti on. Meets not a lot of damage comes in. The attempted engage by Swordheart is not going to come in either. Do not burn his flash. It's the W. But now we got a Mega Gnar going to push in the Tahm Kench. Revenge gets his shield flashed away. Shark going to catch him. Now the health bars are low. Sonic Wave. Resonating Strike 1-for-1. First blood goes through to Insanity in a fight that TSM began.
Really back and forth fight there. Both top laners ending up in the middle of their enemy teams. Revenge does drop, but Spica had to give his own life up to find that kill. Now that does mean Spica's dead. Luckily, the dragon was already taken. It's not quite up yet, so they have a little bit of time. Doesn't matter if the smite dropped, and both teams now going to reset a little bit.
Yeah, first blood going to the Immortals side. They're going to be feeling good about that. They want to be playing heavily through this Rise, get them out to the side lane. That's one of their significant advantages, and they were able to get first blood here. In TSM, they forced a lot of summoners, so we'll see if that ends up mattering. But the initial play is just in onto Xerxes. Takes the very end of the queue, Wardhop kicks him back. Xerxes ulting him into the tower was pretty impactful, because he takes the tower shot, gets rooted up by Insanity, so Spica's already very low here. Then, Huni going in on the play. Yes, you scoop into the Tahm Kench, but you are just a less tanky version, and Spica, who was already low from the earlier play, has to go in here and give up his life to get the kill.
Yeah, and nice shockwave by PoE to make sure it stays a 1-for-1, and a little dicey for Immortals to try and re-engage for more, but
it's an early game shockwave.
Yeah,
it did about 10% health.
Yeah, you got Merc Treads first as well to try and survive. You're not really going to blow anyone up at this point.
I want to point out a really, really small thing for PoE, because I think every bad Orianna player would do this otherwise. He did not RW instantly. He R'd, waited for the CC to end, then hit the W. Mostly guarantee they're all in the middle, but also maximizes the duration you get the W slow. Just in case he's going to walk over the pool a little bit later. So just a small delay in distance is actually always correct in Orianna. Cool to see.
I think the thing that's going to be important to track from here is now there are finally summoners down. I know a lot of the times in pro games, people get a little gun shy because it's like, oh, well, he can flash my Lee Sin insect or something, and I don't want to end up in the middle of the enemy team. Once you start blowing summoners, it becomes a lot easier to focus. Now, a lot of the summoners that are down are on the jungler and top laner for both teams, so maybe not the most impactful ones, but it is going to make it a little bit easier as this dragon fight comes up if there's going to be contest.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Xerxes is easier to catch out there, especially when you have Flash on the rel. That to me is one of the key playmakers, being able to deliver that ball. It is going to be a trade of dragon for top turret, and I think that favors TSM pretty heavily. Huni was already ahead. He's going to get even more ahead now. And the Shockwave just barely will catch, but it's just going to be a bit of a chip because Destiny's here. Xerxes also here to cover.
Top turret still under fire. Obviously, Huni, very rich, has his mythic done already, brings in Spica for counter jungling, and I gotta say, it's such a great feeling when you can walk up and just, great, Botly gets a turret here as well. That's gonna feel really good, but you start poaching camps, and now the Bandage doesn't get any gold income on the other side. Krugs are almost the most valuable camp on the map, and yeah, cool, just, denying Xin Zhao he's behind, and hey, I'm already on Mythic, ready to go on Lee Sin.
Looking pretty good for TSM. The ability to kind of neutralize that mid lane play. The Dragons, it's not a dragon stacking game right now. We're not going to see Elder or Soul for quite a while. I think things are looking really good for them, actually, at this point in the game, given that with the Orianna, their team fighting will be a little bit better. I think they look great.
You can also see that Huni's actually getting ready for the potential side lane later against Rise here. He's going towards Wit's End second, building some earlier MR here. That is going to be effective against Tahm Kench as well, but you know that you will be facing Insanity in the later stages. You grab yourself a Wit's End, you grab yourself some Merc Shreds, and you can be pretty well prepared for that. And something I know you're going to be happy to see, Freak, is Ray's here about to try for us. And you were on an absolute rampage earlier. talking
green
about
room.
how much better this is.
Divine Sunderer is heavily overrated on some champions. Those champions are Ezreal and Gangplank. So I'm glad we have the correct fill to raise.
You're toning it down a little bit for broadcast. It was spicier in the green room.
I mean, it's overrated. That's what I said. It's overrated on those champions.
Off with their heads.
He was like, they're brain dead building this crap.
That's not what I said. Either
anyone who
way,
builds it.
correct build out arrays, obviously, being a marksman, can really use the attack speed. The mythic pass is pretty outstanding. And yeah, the actual proc damage is great. You're not going to use the heal much as a ranged champion, so we'll give him the most damage output overall, not indexing towards tank stats. So that'll be good. He'll keep scaling up, obviously. As, yeah, TSM, 1700 FCX gold advantage. Yeah, you know we're not dragon stacking, but hey, looks like they're getting a second Herald with no contest really at all. P comes in to secure it just to make sure. Okay, great. Smite if you need it. Needs it. Cool. Great. And they're going to find another turret going down pretty soon.
Yeah, I mean, you can just move towards mid lane. I think that's likely what they're going to look for. The last outer tower here, TSM has all of theirs alive, and you also could try to play through Huni if you want to try to push a little bit deeper, drop that for the tier 2, get that additional gold here onto Huni, try to keep him ahead of the pace of the rise, because Insanity is farming really well.
Pretty good damage. Cleanse not going to matter because you've been chomped up, you've been spit out and lost. Found in the mid lane. Time to attack mid lane turret. They will not kill it in time to stop the TP. They'll get the, not even the auto attack to proc the W. Raze, I'm pretty sure he had Arcane Shift up, didn't even go for turret damage.
I think he was a little bit nervous about Sword Art potentially engaging. If Power of Evil arrives, you get comboed up there by the potential shockwave coming through. Could be dangerous, but yeah, playing it pretty timid. And Lost getting caught out. And this was a problem for TSM against Team Liquid. Lost out of position a number of times, the Zig games in particular. You know, walking into the river there, his Varus game as well from a lead. It's something he has been criticized for, and one of the ways that Immortals could potentially have an in the series.
Definitely the most criticized player from the previous series, and you know, there were a lot of team issues, there were a lot of things to point out, but I think the community in particular has targeted Lost as someone that they want to see more out of. This is not exactly the ideal start. They did have a decent laning phase that they were able to take the turret down. You know, the two Osh boys squaring off against each other, coming out ahead a little bit during the laning phase, but that's not the part that people are necessarily the most critical of, to your point. It's these mid-game situations where now people are TPing mid to defend turrets as opposed to looking for proactive opportunities.
And I think it's always tough when you are the replacement for, you know, this iconic player like Doublelift, right? You come in as the follow-up. You know, Doublelift always dominant in NA. You know, won so many titles here for TSM, and Lost has some very big shoes to fill.
Well, so far the better Kiwi. I mean, I'd still say it's Lost because he's winning, you know? He's got less CS, but he's got a turret. And I really, you know, it's so much CS to pick up for a turret kill. Yeah, it's fine.
I will say, based off that mid lane play, though, I do want to see Immortals play a little bit more aggressive. To your point about the timidness about whether you can get that proc off on the turret, at least it forces TSM to engage on you, then you can maybe make things happen. I feel like they need to get a little bit more aggressive here when they have these opportunities to push the lead as far as they can, because otherwise TSM is very happy to have stabilized from that play, and Huni has his own pressure. He will keep pushing down top lane, so if you don't get more out of that play, it's not even bad for TSM necessarily.
I mean, TSM now trying to play pretty heavily around Vision. It looks like they want to go for this next dragon, seeing that it is Ocean. Ocean's always valued incredibly highly by the pro teams. Huni able to take down that tower top, already has his wit's end. He's on 2 items, and it's so difficult to actually face check into this. Varus is poking you out. You have to engage through a potential Orianna ball, through a potential Rel engage. So TSM push out this one more wave, then they can go down into that bot side river. Huni's still chilling top, but does have to be worried about Realm Warp.
Okay, looking for the top side. Huni is Mininar, has absolutely no resources, but Destiny's not going to land the Zenith Blade. And Huni just walks away. Mid lane outer is gone.
Oh, it's a disaster for Immortals. They wanted to sack the dragon and go, okay, we'll make a play on the flip side of the map. But TSM was in range because they were already pressuring down mid lane. So they just kind of followed that roam and give Huni his alley to escape.
Yeah, I mean, they just didn't have full vision, so you're kind of guessing exactly where to Realm Warp. Do you Realm Warp to the left? Do you Realm Warp to the right? Huni made the correct choice, but it was a bit of an obvious play because when you're both contesting mid, they don't walk towards bottom river where you have vision. Where are they going to go? Well, of course, they're moving up towards topside, and now Revenge going to get wrapped around here.
He's going to W away, though. Honestly gets to walk. There are not a lot of ways to stop Tahm Kench W. You've got, you know, Sword Art and Lost and Power of Evil's ult and Spica's ult. And if he's Meganar, okay, listen, every champion, I understand that, but they're mostly ultimates, okay? They're ultimates or they require being in Meganar, so it's not the most reliable. In this case, he was Mininar. Literally couldn't stop him. I wasn't wrong.
I mean, TSM's just happy to play the pressure game at this point. You saw how hard it was for them to walk in and contest that dragon. Varus and Orianna poke, chunking them out. And I think almost all of this has to come down to the better vision control on the side of TSM. Vision score is a little bit of a sus stat. You know, you have to be careful when you use it. But just if you look on the side of TSM, almost all of their members are pretty heavily outpacing their opponents in vision score. They've done such a good job of getting a lot of wards down in the river to make sure it's hard for Immortals to go for plays.
This could look really good. Raze is going to be in range with the red buff. Mistimes it, but it's not going to really matter. Huni got a Mega Gnar into the wall, but there's no way through it. Shutdown goes through. Kill credits going the way of Immortals, but TSM still playing the map better.
Yeah, that's an overextension there from Huni, and they're going to get the farm shutdown. That's actually a pretty big deal. He had no kills, but he was so far up in CS. You do get the shutdown. They get some damage down on mid, and you're going to get a little bit of map control back here. Revenge finally going to be able to push out the wave. Immortals pushing up here mid, trying to grab their tower and looking for Sword Art.
Oh, his W, yeah, has to flash get away. True Shot Barrage will not get a kill. Sword Art also jukes the correct direction, but this might be enough to kill the turret. Are they going to be afraid?
Yeah.
Raze has flash. He's so gun shy. Lost ult is down. Pee-wee wasn't in range. Sword Art was flashless. That turret would be dead if Raze just played up for 2 auto attacks at any point in any of these sieges.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary. It's a big playoff series. I understand the pressure, but yeah, you have to try and find these opportunities. Because he did a good job sneaking.
To be fair, this one I think was more defensible.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he's down to about 30%. I don't know if Ferris had W, but a WQ maybe actually kills you. So I get it. The previous one mid lane, I do think he was playing a little bit shy. And that's something that you do see in playoffs more often than in regular season, right? Players feel the pressure of this additional importance on this series, of the fact that if they lose here, their year is over. And sometimes that can cause you to play a little bit more defensively than is intelligent. And that's tough when you're playing on a champion like Ezreal, who needs to get the maximum, who needs to be baiting out spells, forcing out cooldowns by playing right on that line. And also, if you're going to go Trinity Force, you want to get some use out of that attack speed.
That's true.
I do want to give him also a little bit of the positive credit for making that play on the bot side. He found the area where they knew Spica had put a deep ward over the wall. He found the path through, not in vision, to get the kill onto Huni to allow a potential push down the mid lane in a 4v5 situation. So, you know, you get take the good and the bad sometimes, the players.
Attempt on a Sword Art not going to land. Spica gets most of the Raptors yet again. Thank you for the roughly 70 gold taken away, as 8 is only grabbed back for Xerxes, and we now have Baron looking like important. Gonna be a melee range stun. Spica face checks, but he knows Sword Art was around him, had a stun if he needed it, had a safeguard target available, and you know, able to do so pretty safely.
I gotta say, I'm pretty surprised that Huni actually went Tabbies this game instead of Merc. So I think with Leona as well as Ryze, there's so much lockdown there. And he's clearly wanting to play mostly through sides. You know, he's built with the Wit's End pretty heavily for sides. So is a little bit surprising. Of course, there is some auto attack damage there from Ezreal, from Xin, but I feel like they're not the main threats in this game. To me, it's more concerning if you get locked down and can't Mega.
Big fight on to Huni, gonna get Mega Gnar into the bottom side. Knockup coming through for Tom Kench, but not a ton being done. Xin Zhao's already gone. 1 for 0. Thank you, Huni, for the kill. Running away is the opposing support. Shaka gonna find Raze, but he's able to jump over the wall to stay alive. Power of Evil, he's one more spell to get that kill. Insanity trades back Huni, and they are going for the tower dive, but the spells finally land. Onto the turret goes Spica, takes down the opposing AD carry. Damage output's gonna find a support, but now it is just Revenge left alone. He will get none for himself. TSM take that fight 4-2.
4-2 in TSM's favor. A very split fight because Insanity and Revenge actually tried to hop onto Lost at the very beginning of that. Nice play by Lost to stay alive and kite that out and allow Spica to chase down the weak backline of Immortals.
Yeah, that was really well played from TSM overall. I mean, Spica going very deep there to finish off kills.
Feeling himself.
Yeah, I mean, as rightly he should. He has a ton of farm. He's got some kills under his belt. You know, he is really strong at this point of the game. When you're playing a champion like Lee Sin, you've got to look for those plays. You've got to go for those aggressive moves. And Huni and Power of Evil set him up well. You know, both of them had solid ultimates in the fight. And we'll see what TSM can get for this. The Dragon up here in 10.
Yeah, a little bit faster of a reset for Immortals here. They were able to get a little bit of vision, but still Insanity, you know, respawning, coming out of the base. They'll be a little slow to this Dragon. Here's the interesting part about this fight, where they catch Huni out. There's a lot of people jumping on top of him. I thought Revenge was going to go into the middle of this kind of combination of Sword Art and Huni, but he actually tries to get onto Lost here. Does get the knockup, but then spends the rest of the fight trying to play footsies around blue buff. Huni kites back, and it leads to a split fight where Insanity and Revenge are on this half of the map, and then you see on the top side, Spica is just crushing it with PoE.
Yeah, and part of the problem is it's fine to dive deep there as Revenge, but if you do not have some sort of follow-up, if you do not have the Ryze or someone in that backline with you, you're not really going to be able to kill Varys off very quickly yourself. So Lost kites it out. He cleanse flashes over the wall. And on the other side, Orianna, Lee Sin, as well as the Gnar really do have that damage to get it done. And they are taking down members left, right, and center. And Huni now, he's going to crack this inhib tower.
Huni is just built to be an incredible split pusher. This has been his strength, I think, forever. I think back to making World Finals with SKT. He had a lot of those Jace games where he's going to have 400 CS in 35 minutes and he's going to be side lane forever. And if you don't side lane well against him, sorry, he's up 80 CS and he's killing your entire base. He's doing it again still. Like, the man, I feel like for the most part, has never dropped that kind of skill set and is a big part of why TSM are ahead. He's probably half their lead still.
I mean, he's massively up right now as far as the gold goes. He's up over 3,000 gold individually, so
he's still 2/3.
Pretty crazy at this point in the game. 3 full items completed. He is playing very, very dominantly. They're at soul point. They're winning side lanes. Immortals needs to force something, or they are just going to bleed out this game because they're playing fairly passively. TSM is doing a great job dictating the pace of the game. They're the ones controlling vision around Dragon. They're always the ones first to set up. And now finally Insanity is getting out to the side lane and answering the Gnar because you need to make some sort of play around that. Clearly Tahm Kench cannot do anything against Gnar at this point in the game.
The only difficult part is they have no teleports. They had to use them in these awkward situations about covering plays and trying to get involved. So right now, yeah, you can commit the Rise down to deal with the Gnar, but in the entire time, you have to be worried what's going to happen with your 4-man core because the Gnar can join in at any time and make it a 5v4.
All right, time to jump away. Out of range of most of the engaged tools. Okay, slows down Sordos. Speaking to kick him in, and now the reinforcements need to arrive. Teleport coming in for even more. Should be very tanky. These thick skin a little bit late. Revenge loses it instantly to Sword Art's Q and just goes down 1-0.
Exactly what I was just saying. You have the Gnar TPing from the flip side of the play. All Rise can do is push down and get some turrets in the bot side. Now they're going to try and convert it into Baron. Exactly.
Okay, Rise the bottom lane does have Summoner Teleport up right now. True Shot Barrage sees this happening, but can they win a 4v5? They have not called the TP just yet, and they realistically can't do this very easily. No Blast Plant, so it requires Xerxes, WE, and then maybe flash away. Look at the bottom turret, and Xerxes can basically make this a coin flip. But here goes Mega Gnar. Puts the ulti in, all the season comes across, but Baron is not in his bite range just yet. Finally will get taken, well done, and now Xerxes forced to run away. Can he get chased down? House is gonna land. Somebody here for the move speed flash to stay alive. Baron has been picked up, bot lane tier 2 is claimed. Raze jumps in, and it's flung back. The time he flips it in is the time he gets flipped across to the TSM and gets taken down. A quick 2-0 team fight the TSM.
And TSM have waves mid and top. Insanity got 2 towers bot, but they lose Baron. They're going to lose so many towers here. And that could very well spell the end of it for Immortals. This gold lead is about to explode here. They're pushing in topside. They do get a kill, though.
Okay, Insanity finds one. The respawn's coming in still 15 seconds, but can they win this fight anyway? The TP finally finishes, though, for Orianna. This is a 3v4. Revenge flashing to stay away from Shockwave, but now Huni is back in. Mega Gnar gonna find the double stun, gonna find the shutdowns. A killing spree for the Gnar. Tahm Kench can run for his life. The flag comes out. Speaker's like, you might as well surrender.
TSM have no chill. They grab the Baron. They go instantly into pushing. They don't know what resetting is. They're going to grab top inhibitor off the kills that they were able to find while Immortals was trying to punish them for never backing.
We'll see if Immortals wants to go for some sort of a long chase. That doesn't look like it's in the cards. The TP is up for Insanity, but he's not going to respawn for way too long. So they will be resetting here with so much gold. Huni has 3,200 gold to spend, 1,800 on jungle and mid, 3,000 available as well for their bot laner. So they have over 10K basically to spend at this point. And this is just really well executed by TSM. They got the initial pick, then no chance of a 50-50 here. Huni megas out, goes over the wall. The CC between him and Sword Art is more than enough to keep Cersei out.
And this is where Immortals start to feel a little desperate. They know some people are probably still in the pit, so once Ray starts landing this poke, he's like, well, maybe I can get a little bit more aggressive, but Sword Art instantly sees that, instantly jumps forward, knows he has the backup to punish. They find a couple more kills, and then at this point, Immortals are scrambling to try and stem the bleeding. They're like, all right, well, maybe we can find some other people, but TSM just keep the pressure up.
Here we go, Baron alive in 30 seconds. Sorry, Dragon gonna be soul for TSM. They get it. Xerxes already gone, 1-0. Ult's gonna land. This is dangerous for the Ezreal. Stopwatch used for Lost, but Destiny might be able to lock him down, finds a bit of damage. Shockwave buys the time, and 3 kills in for TSM. Nowhere to go but away. Raze has to run. Revenge will do it again as well. Dragon's up in 8 seconds, but TSM say we'd rather kill the base. They won't even leave one back. They're gonna go for the kills instead. Raze will be knocked down. Huni's on a rampage, 13-6 the scoreline, and TSM want the base.
Looking a little dicey there for Lost, but he's able to stay alive. the rest of TSM coming in to save his life, and now they're able to push down the mid lane. They're pinging the turrets. They definitely want to try and end this game. They should be able to do it. 30 seconds until Raze is back up.
2 respawns coming in 5 seconds, though. Maybe somehow a 3v5 defense. Revenge, the thick skin comes on, gets stunned, gets killed, and it's time to knock down the turrets as well. Cersei and Destiny left alone. Meganar back up, finds the jungler. Damage gonna come across well. A double kill for the mid laner as Power of Evil grabs his 4th kill of the game. And now on to the final Nexus. Turret of the stopwatch keeps Destiny alive for a few more moments. A reasonably close early game, but now TSM just playing with their food. A Shockwave gets yet another, and the Nexus falls at 32 minutes.
TSM looking great in game number 1. They did go blue side here against the Immortals, but it ended up being top diff all the same. The blind pick Tom Kench here has worked out for Revenge in the past. He has had some incredible games on it, but Huni with the Gnar, more than equal to the task, got very ahead early, constantly shoving. And I think the Wits End was really, really smart here, just indexing into his side lane strength when he was already playing from ahead. I mean, he just was constantly pressuring Immortals, constantly extending the gold lead for TSM. And I mean, they looked fully in control start to finish.
I think control was the big word for me. The vision control that they had, the way that Spica was able to make sure the Ryze Xin could never make anything happen throughout the entire early game, which isolates that counter pick Gnar to just be able to pressure 24/7 the entire game. I think Huni was the one who got a lot of the gold lead, but it was a lot of the team setting him up to be able to just push as much as he wanted.
And he got to play just 100-0, right? Just pushing at all times, always play to maximize his income, push his leads individually. He was the highest level champion in the game above his teammates and obviously his opponents as well. Every time we actually checked in and looked, he was over half of his team's gold lead just on his 1v1. And yeah, Tom Kench can be useful with a gold deficit. We saw him force some flashes, but like Huni's unkillable outside of 1v3s, and he took, I want to say, 4 or 5 turrets just by himself. Like, he just was all the map pressure. That's TSM is like, well, we can just wave through an Ori Varus. That's fine. We'll show up for team fights. No big deal. It was great.
I mean, it just felt like TSM was so far in their comfort zone the entire game, right? From picks to the pace of the game to who was choosing the fights to who was advancing the state of the game. And they had this incredible team fight combo. They were being allowed to scale pretty much for free towards this Rel Orianna. They're winning side lane. There didn't really feel like any sort of point of pressure for Immortals. You know, they drafted for this Ezreal to be able to play 1v2 bot. Orianna's supposed to roam heavily, but they didn't have enough control to actually keep the river clear of vision. So every time he moved from bot lane, he was marked, it was answered. It just felt like Immortals have got to play with more aggression, have got to take some bigger swings here, because clearly that style of game goes heavily towards TSM.
I think when you're talking about taking bigger risks, it includes the draft, not just in-game where we're talking about, oh, should you have walked up and hit the turret or whatnot, but you're on red side. Like, if you're not getting something with counter picks, and 5th pick Ezreal counter pick is not it, that's not going to be a pressure point for you, then you didn't really walk away with anything. And so I think that's one of the big areas. I assume they'll go blue side, but...
Give me the Draven!
Yeah, give me some aggressive stuff.
Absolutely. Okay, so game 1 is over, but more things to talk about. We are working with the White House about the COVID-19 vaccine. Please get yourself vaccinated if you are able to. I will say personally, I've had it, and it's been great. I get to hang out with these fine gentlemen to my side. Not sick. It's been wonderful. There's a lot of resources on your screen. Please stay safe and stay healthy out there, and we'd love to have you in the studio for the 2022 season, so make it happen, please. Now, we are headed to a break. When we return, the State Farm Analyst Desk is breaking down that all-important first win for TSM. We'll see you there.
This thing till the wheels fall off. Catch my drift, pop my clutch. Pedal, metal, skirt, peel off. Top peeled off, choke on my dust. I want it all, but it's never enough. I've been running the map, I'ma keep it a buck. I've been so far ahead, it ain't no catching up. All gas, no brakes, all gas. no brakes. All gas, no brakes. I'm running it. All gas, no brakes. All gas, no brakes. All gas, no brakes. I'm running it. My foot on the gas and I'm pumping my brakes. Yeah, get out my way. Yeah, give me some space. Yeah, better do what I say. Life on the run, I be making these moves. Say what I wanna, can't walk in my shoes. Do what I wanna, I'm nobody's fool. Now I'm on top, hate to give you the news. If you did it, I done it. You do not run it. Your tank is on me, now let's keep it 100. You running on fumes, I'm taking no breaks. It is worth having if you gotta wait. Let's get it straight. This is my fate, my destiny calling like I got a date. I'ma be ballin' like I'm moving weight. Now let's even the odds so you know it's at stake. And get it, adios. I've been at the top, you ain't even close. Randy Moss, the competition toast. Hail Mary, catch it, then I'm ghost. Out of here, go. Changing my number, no calling my phone. Trust me, I'm focused, I'm all in my zone. I made a living from proving them wrong. Come hella, I wanted whatever the cost. Started off local and now I'm a boss. Don't bet against me, you be taking a loss. Say what I wanna, I'm driven with sauce. All gas, no brakes. All gas, no brakes. All gas, no brakes. I'm running it. All gas, no brakes. All gas, no brakes. All gas, no brakes. I'm running it.
Yeah. All of my life, man, they counted me out. Not many people are doubting me now. Even some legends are shouting me out. I promise there's nobody stopping me now. My haters look angry, I'm popping. My name will never be forgotten. Running this game, I ain't jogging. Opponents know that I'm a problem. Hey, always considered the underdog. That is just crazy.
Welcome back to the State Farm Analyst Desk, where we're going to put our arguments over highest historical records at Worlds to rest for now and talk about the series at hand. It's TSM versus Immortals, and it's TSM who comes out on top in Game 1. And Emily, I'm going to come to you with this. And while it wasn't a 20-minute stop, it felt too easy for TSM.
Well, they were completely comfortable. And like I said, I mean, so let's revisit the draft, right? Because I do think that, again, when I am on red side as IMT, obviously, TSM foresaw that they wanted to get the Lucian immediately off the table because IMT is such a Ziggs-heavy team. Like, we've seen them flex at mid. They've played at bot. It's really important for IMT to get a specific bot lane that they can do really well. The last pick, counter pick Ezreal, not a huge fan of that. Like, it's basically, if you're on red side, you want to be getting strong counter picks. You want to be getting things that will set TSM outside of their comfort zone, and they didn't do that whatsoever. So TSM end up with this composition they're perfectly comfortable on. They have a better side lane pressure, and it was just really hard from the get-go for IMT to even have a foothold in this game.
All right, Jay. As a previous coach yourself, you see this draft that IMT does. They're doing, I think the 1-3 is perfectly fine, right? The 4-5 bands could be different. You have the opportunity here to pick your AD carry. It's not blind, by the way, because you see Varus. Or you have the opportunity to try and counter pick top. What would you do in this situation? Because I need to know why IMT chose to last pick Ezreal. I don't think in any world that ever makes sense to me, unless Ryze was a flex towards bottom, which I don't think it was.
Yeah, so we've been talking about this a lot, and even during the draft, we thought we were going to see the AD carry pick on 4 when the Tom Kench came in. And especially, like, either they had a different read on the matchup than what happened, or they forgot about Gnar. Like, sometimes that can actually happen in these draft situations, because, I mean, look at TSM's. So, okay, I think the situations in which you would blind a top laner there is if you have done setup bans to make that top laner a favorable pick, which TSM had done for Gnar. There's an Aurelia and a Jace ban. They wanted Gnar this whole time. I think Gnar is one of the best picks you can do into Tom Kench.
And
or especially blind if you have those 2 bans, for sure. Even more so when you're playing into Tom Kench. So that then the way this game played out, like, we were watching it back here, and this is probably why we don't have any replays. We're like 15 minutes in. It's like 1 dragon to 0 and like a 500 gold lead. We're like, yeah, this game's over. Because Tom Kench can never move Gnar. Gnar always moves first. Ryze might be able to split push. against the Orianna, which is what you pointed out high. But then in the mid lane, the Varus is going to be poking so well. So TSM is going to just have setup and control the whole time, and the window for attack for Immortals just isn't there. So I think they'll make some changes.
Yeah, and even for that time or two, right, that Immortals was able to catch out the Gnar in the side lane. Okay, punish him by handing him a death. He had already put in thousands of damage into turrets. I mean, you heard the casters saying it themselves. I mean, Gnar, Huni himself took, I think, 4 turrets throughout the course of that game.
Yeah, I was going to say, Huni was always in the side lane just pushing down turrets. So even they're like trying to contest for other objectives. Huni is already splitting. TSM already have the advantage in the side lanes.
All right, hear me out. So I actually don't think it's that bad to have the Tahm Kench there. Okay. Yes, Tahm Kench can't beat the split push against Gnar, but Ryze can. Ryze beats Gnar, and he beats Orianna. The only problem is that Insanity didn't do that well. He grouped up around like 18 minutes, and they tried to 4v4 mid. You cannot do that as Ryze, especially into Orianna. Yep. You need to go on the side. You beat the Gnar, you beat Orianna, force them to come to you, and you have to make the game be about Ryze. Like, Ryze is a center point, and he carries.
Yeah, I think if you're, because Dash asked off camera, like, what would you have liked to see IMT do in the early game to set TSM off kilter, right? And I do think, initially I thought it was topside, but rethinking it, I actually think mid lane is really good because you can target with the Ryze, with the Xin Zhao. You should have a better matchup in that 2v2. And they did not attack it.
So I think playing against TSM, you can't attack PoE's Orianna. He plays too safe. You will just waste your time. I think what you need to do is you need to move the Ryze.
So I was going to say even to reset the wave so the Ryze can move.
Yeah, you need to move the Ryze.
Because it's not about killing PoE. It's about getting pushed so you can move Ryze aside.
Yeah, and this is the point that I wanted to bring up earlier on in the day is this, to me, this champion pool discrepancy is the biggest between any set of players in the series. Right. Mainly just looking at damage types. So Insanity's most played champions throughout all of summer and playoffs here, 3 AD picks. I don't think the Nocturne will be that relevant because of the nerfs that were hit there. But PoE, even though he did some experimentation in spring and parts of summer of trying to play some Lee Sin and some Lucian, he's going to be playing nothing but AP champs. So I think finding the right damage spread and getting more AD heavy compositions where they can do a Syndra or a Ziggs flex bot lane is, I think, where Immortals can find an advantage in the series if they're able to get some games.
The other thing that speaks to me about that graphic too is the aggressiveness of the champions on the side of Immortals. A lot of those champions want to make the opposing mid laner uncomfortable, but as you said, Power of Evil is one of the players that it's toughest to do that against.
Well, and they're also a cover, so that because again, IMT do really, really well when we've seen them play Ziggs a ton. It's a flex pick for them, or if they have like a pushing bot lane. The other part of the AD champions is just that if Insanity is on an AD champion, it means that they can flex a bunch of AP options bot, and we've seen them do that.
All right, hear me out. If IMT is going to win, outside of all 5 players just getting better, I would suggest that, I don't know how to say his name as the coach. Is it Gilyoto? Am I saying that right? All right, hear me out, brother. Get a double split pushing mid top laner, okay? PoE will almost always play a backline mage mid. Those guys never want to be on the side. Get a strong top splitting push laner for Revenge and for Insanity. So you have like your Ryze, Camille, whatever it may be, split push top, split push bot, force them in this weird situation where they're like, hey, do we want this objective or do we want to lose towers? And you'll have a higher chance of winning than trying to go for like a 4v4 mid or something like that. Have double split pushing, play through that. And Revenge is good at split pushing. Insanity is okay at split pushing, but he's probably better at it than PoE is. That's my pitch.
Gwen, Jace, Camille, Aurelia, like finding ways to do that. They have side selection. I can see in the prompter they've picked red, which makes sense to me. They've played that twice as much as they played blue side throughout the season. Save that 5 pick for your top laner.
Double split push.
If TSM invests 2 bans to set up a Gnar blind, ban Gnar in the 4-5. I do think watching that game 1, while TSM did play well and controlled, Huni won that game in a huge way. So I don't think Immortals wins this series if they can't get Revenge in a matchup where he can win the side lane past 15 minutes, right? And just be the first to the play. Make Huni stuck at his turret. That's kind of where I think they can maybe find an edge against TSM.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to keep coming back to, I think, the word you use, which is uncomfortability, right? Immortals trying to make TSM uncomfortable, and that's one way to do it, right? By dictating the play themselves and making TSM react. Either way, we'll see if they can find the answer in Game 2 on red side, once again with that counter pick. TSM, they land the first blow in this series. We're heading to a break. When we come back, we'll be in Game 2 of this best of 5.
perfect way to switch it up. The HR-V from Honda.
It all comes down to this one last dragon fight to call the whole game. Boom! Look at the damage on the wombo combo. All 5 enemy players down. GG!